The sky over Europe in 1944 was supposed to belong to the Luftwaffe. For years, German pilots had flown with a swagger, confident that no Allied plane could touch them beyond the French coast. Their Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs tore into bombers, sending plumes of smoke spiraling down over occupied territory. Every Allied raid came at a brutal cost, and every mission was a gamble. But then, out of the horizon, something new appeared. Sleek, fast, relentless, and ready to change everything. German air power, known as the Luftwaffe, had long commanded these very skies, inflicting catastrophic losses on American bomber crews venturing deep into enemy territory. Operations targeting crucial industrial sites like Schweinfurt and Regensburg became synonymous with devastation, witnessing the slaughter of aircraft and airmen at an alarming speed. The bleak reality was a death spiral, with the 8th Air Force losing experienced crews faster than they could be trained, threatening the collapse of the entire strategic bombing campaign. Yet into this desperate scenario, a strange new American fighter appeared, seemingly overnight: the P-51 Mustang. A machine built in an astonishing 117 days, it would not only come to terrify seasoned German aces, but also fundamentally alter the outcome of World War II, shattering the odds and transforming the tide of the entire air war. This improbable aircraft, born from crisis and desperate necessity, was poised to become World War II's greatest game-changer, embodying a revolutionary combination of American industrial might, British innovation, and sheer audacity. The origins of this aerial legend trace back to a phone call in the spring of 1940, a moment when Britain's Air Command faced a profound crisis. The Luftwaffe was pressing relentlessly, and the Royal Air Force urgently needed fighters. The British Purchasing Commission approached North American Aviation, a company primarily known for trainers and bombers, with a simple request: build more P-40 Warhawks under license. However, North America's President James Dutch Kindleberger saw an opportunity for something far bolder. He offered to design a brand new fighter from scratch, promising to have it ready to fly in an almost impossible timeline, just 117 days. This audacious gamble led to the assembly of a dedicated team under chief designer called Edgar Schmood, a German-American engineer whose unique perspective and experience in racing aircraft infused the project with innovative ideas. Schmood's team faced the challenge of building a fighter that could outfly the competition while being produced faster and more efficiently than anything before. Their solution was elegant and revolutionary. Instead of the patchwork of multi-panel construction typical of the era, they used large single-piece panels that made assembly quicker, tighter, and smoother, reducing drag dramatically. Even the radiator was repositioned beneath the fuselage, designed with ducting that turned a source of drag into extra thrust. Add to this a laminar flow wing and a sleek body, and the result was an aircraft unlike anything in the skies. The prototype NA-73X was airborne only 102 days after the contract was signed in October 1940, a feat of American speed and ingenuity. From the start, it impressed. Fast, stable, maneuverable, and capable of over 415 miles per hour at sea level, faster than even the best Spitfires below 15,000 feet. But the early Mustang had a problem. Its Allison V1710 engine was solid at low altitude, but weak above 15,000 feet, where the air war over Europe was really being fought. That left the Mustang excellent for low-level missions, but ineffective for high-altitude escort. The RAF quickly found uses for it: fast reconnaissance flights over France, coastal raids, and intercepting Germany's terrifying V-1 flying bombs. In these roles, the Mustang proved slippery and reliable, earning a reputation as a survivor. But as the bomber war intensified, its weakness at altitude became impossible to ignore. By 1943, American bombers were plunging deeper into German skies, striking factories and refineries essential to Hitler's war machine. The Luftwaffe met them with brutal efficiency, losses mounted at a catastrophic rate. On August 17, 1943, 60 bombers were destroyed in a single mission to Schweinfurt and Regensburg. 2 months later, on a day called Black Thursday, another 60 bombers were shot down and nearly 650 men killed or captured. Losses ran over 25%, and the entire bombing campaign teetered on collapse. Existing escort fighters couldn't keep pace. The P-47 Thunderbolt was tough but lacked range, the Spitfire was short-legged, and the P-38 Lightning suffered mechanical issues at altitude. Even attempts to field gunship bombers, like the YB-40, proved futile. Without a true long-range escort, the bombing offensive seemed doomed. The turning point came when a Rolls-Royce test pilot, Ronald Harker, flew an Allison-powered Mustang in April 1942 and immediately saw its potential if only it carried the Merlin engine. The Merlin's 2-stage supercharger gave Spitfires their high-altitude punch and fitted to the Mustang. It transformed the fighter overnight. An extensive redesign was needed. Cooling, weight, and structure all had to be adjusted, but the payoff was staggering. At 26,000 feet, the new engine boosted speed by over 100 miles per hour, making the Mustang the fastest Allied fighter at bomber altitudes. The British confirmed it and said this was the plane they had been waiting for. The only question now was whether it could also go the distance. That problem was solved with the arrival of external drop tanks. Carried under the wings, these simple fuel extensions doubled the Mustang's range, stretching it to 1,600 miles. Pilots would burn through the tanks first, then jettison them the moment combat loomed, regaining full speed and agility. This simple innovation changed the air war immediately. Suddenly, the bombers weren't flying halfway to Germany alone. The Mustangs could escort them all the way to Berlin and back. With the range problem solved, the Mustang became not just an escort, but a predator. Under Jimmy Doolittle's command, American strategy shifted dramatically. No longer were fighters chained tightly to bomber streams. Doolittle's order was blunt and revolutionary. Don't just escort, but hunt. Mustang groups began sweeping ahead of bomber formations, intercepting German fighters as they scrambled from airfields or tried to mass for attack. The Luftwaffe's greatest advantage was the ability to time their strikes so that when escorts turned back, it was gone. Now it was the Germans who were hunted in their own skies. The P-51D, introduced in mid-1944, pushed the advantage even further. Its bubble canopy offered 360-degree visibility, eliminating blind spots, and 650 caliber machine guns gave it overwhelming firepower. Paired with the Merlin engine, it could outclimb, outdive, and outturn nearly everything the Luftwaffe could possibly field. The results were devastating for the Reich. In just 5 months of 1944, Germany lost nearly 2,300 day fighter pilots. Essentially, their entire experienced force was replaced in a single season. The odds of survival for a German pilot over Germany dropped to 1 in 7 compared to flying on the Eastern Front. Mustang sweeps caught interceptors before they reached the bombers, strafed airfields, and pursued crippled planes back to base. Mass attacks, once the Luftwaffe's hallmark, fell apart under relentless pressure. Even their once feared twin-engine Me-100s and 10s became easy prey and were withdrawn entirely from daylight defense. Desperate, German engineers armed their fighters with massive 20mm and 30mm cannons designed to shred bombers in one pass. But the added weight ruined maneuverability and acceleration. Against nimble Mustangs, these heavily armed planes were sitting ducks. Allied pilots exploited every weakness, forcing head-on passes, then rolling away in tight turns or diving to safety, always with the speed advantage. The Luftwaffe's technical fixes only made their situation worse. By mid-1944, the writing was on the wall. The Luftwaffe wasn't just losing planes, they were losing the war for the skies. The Mustang, once an underdog, had become the weapon that turned the tide. With bombers now reaching their targets under full protection, Germany's industrial base collapsed under relentless attack. Oil refineries, ball-bearing plants, and aircraft factories were all systematically destroyed, and without them, the Luftwaffe couldn't replace what it lost. In the beginning of early summer, the numbers told the grim story. In April, the Luftwaffe wrote off 43% of its frontline fighters and lost a fifth of its pilots. By May, half of the single-engine fighters were gone, along with a quarter of the remaining pilots. In just 5 months, the day fighter force had been gutted, with nearly every original pilot lost to death, wounds, or capture. This relentless pressure didn't just bleed the Luftwaffe in the air, it paralyzed training, forced the dispersal of units, and left airfields cratered and burning. German daylight air defense was unraveling, and the skies over Europe, once dominated by the hunters, now belonged to the hunted-wearing black crosses. The Mustang's versatility extended beyond air-to-air combat. Its newfound dominance meant it could also be repurposed for ground attack, adding another layer of terror for German forces. P-51s thundered down to treetop level, their wings bristling with 10 HVR rockets and 2 500-pound bombs strapped beneath. Rail yards, truck convoys, and airfields became prime targets, with a single pass capable of leaving a locomotive flipped and burning or scattering armored vehicles across a country road. The Mustang's 50 caliber guns shredded parked fighters before they ever left the ground. For German troops and pilots, the threat now came relentlessly, from both above and below, day after day. This era, however, also highlighted the moral complexities of war. Major Richard Peterson, flying escort, witnessed a German pilot gunning down American airmen, parachuting helplessly. In a split-second decision fueled by anger and the chaos of war, Peterson pursued the German, forcing the Bf 109 down, and as the German bailed out, opened fire on the descending pilot. The Mustang's power brought victory, but not always peace of mind. As 1944 drew to a close, German pilots braced for a new kind of threat with the emergence of the Me-262 jet, a machine whose blistering speed could outrun any piston-engine fighter in the sky. However, the ingenious Mustang pilots found their opening not in the air, but on the ground. They began prowling German airfields, catching the jets during their vulnerable takeoff or landing phases, where their speed advantage vanished. The Mustang's legacy wasn't confined to Europe either. In April 1945, P-51s escorted B-29's Super Fortresses on their first daylight raid over Japan, stretching their range across the vast Pacific to tangle with the last of the Japanese Zero fighters. Machines that once ruled the skies, now outclassed and outnumbered. Even as jets ushered in the future of aerial combat, the P-51 never faded from memory. Veterans affectionately called it the best-loved fighter of the war, a symbol of freedom and extraordinary reach. Decades later, its unmistakable silhouette continues to turn heads at air shows, its legend secure as the plane that tipped the balance and forever held a special place in the hearts of those who flew it. The P-51 Mustang represents far more than just a successful aircraft. It embodies 3 revolutionary concepts that fundamentally challenged traditional fighter design philosophy and irrevocably transformed aerial warfare. First was the principle of range without compromise. Conventional wisdom dictated that extended range inevitably meant sacrificing performance due to increased weight and reduced maneuverability. The Mustang shattered this assumption through innovative design, particularly its laminar flow wing and exceptionally clean fuselage, which dramatically reduced drag by roughly 30% compared to contemporaries. This efficiency translated directly into superior range and speed. Second was the seamless integration of long-range capability with air superiority performance. While traditional designs forced a choice between a mediocre long-range fighter and a superior but short-legged dogfighter, the P-51D could carry 489 gallons of internal fuel, more than double a Spitfire, extending its range to over 1,650 miles. Yet, it could still outfight the best German interceptors in aerial combat, achieving an astonishing kill ratio of roughly 11-to-1 against Luftwaffe aircraft. Third was manufacturability without quality compromise. North American aviation pioneered assembly line techniques specifically adapted for aircraft production, allowing them to build over 15,000 Mustangs during the war, more than any other American fighter except the P-47 Thunderbolt, while consistently improving build quality and reducing manufacturing time. The P-51 Mustang's success story profoundly influenced the outcome of World War II and continues to impact military aviation doctrine today. Its operational deployment in the European theater, beginning in December 1943, was immediate and devastating to the Luftwaffe's defensive strategy. Before the Mustang's arrival, bomber losses often exceeded 20% on deep penetration missions, unsustainable casualty rates that threatened the entire daylight bombing campaign. With Mustang escort, these losses plummeted to manageable levels, typically under 5%, making sustained strategic bombing not just possible, but devastatingly effective. The psychological impact on German fighter pilots was perhaps even more strategically significant. They could no longer count on finding easy targets and instead faced superior, aggressive fighters, forcing them into a defensive posture that played directly into American strengths: superior numbers, better training, and more experienced pilots. This shift from defensive escort to offensive hunter fundamentally changed the nature of air warfare, accelerating the war's conclusion by actively seeking out and destroying German air power wherever it was found. In the broader narrative of the war, the Mustang's arrival marked the moment when the tide truly turned for the Allies in the European theater. While D-Day often receives more attention as the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany, the air superiority established by aircraft like the P-51 was equally crucial to Allied victory. Without command of the skies, the Normandy invasion would have been far more costly, if not impossible. The Mustang's ability to clear German fighters from European skies created the essential conditions that made Allied ground operations feasible. The aircraft also embodies something essentially American about the World War II effort: the ability to take an urgent problem, apply innovative thinking and massive resources, and produce a solution that not only works, but excels beyond all expectations. It proved that American industrial democracy, when properly motivated and organized, could outproduce and out-innovate totalitarian regimes despite their early advantages. The most profound lesson of the P-51 Mustang lies in technological progress in wartime. It succeeded not because it was the most advanced or sophisticated fighter of its era, but because it was the right aircraft at the right time, designed with clear priorities and manufactured with unprecedented efficiency. It reminds us that in conflict, practical superiority often matters more than theoretical perfection, and that successful innovation requires not just good ideas, but also the industrial and organizational capacity to implement them effectively. The day Germany met the P-51 Mustang wasn't just a bad day at the office. It was the moment they realized the skies above Europe no longer belonged to them, and that victory, once so close, was slipping forever out of reach. This timeless lesson remains relevant today, offering valuable insights that transcend its historical context.